Back in the days before we had modern safes, alarms, or fancy security systems, our grandparents had to get pretty clever. Homes weren't protected by electronic locks, and, well, putting cash or precious items in a bank wasn't always easy or safe. Even with all these challenges, they came up with some truly ingenious hiding spots that burglars hardly ever found. Now, these weren't about drawing treasure maps or making up elaborate schemes. These were just practical, everyday methods that came out of necessity. Learning about these old strategies honestly gives us a window into survival and resourcefulness, and heck, it might even spark some ideas for keeping your own valuables hidden at home or in a survival situation. So they hid money inside everyday objects you'd never suspect. Grandparents, more often than not, picked things that just blended right into daily life. Hollowed-out books, for example, weren't just some cliché. They'd pick a certain book and tuck it away on a shelf where no one would think to look for anything but words. Tea tins, canned goods, even bars of soap with little compartments inside. These all got used to stash coins or a bit of jewelry. The trick was, well, familiarity. If something looked plain and ordinary, it just didn't draw any attention. You know, you can still use this idea today. Just pick containers that fit right in where you live. Maybe an old cookie tin on the kitchen shelf, a candle that's been hollowed out, or a desk drawer with a false bottom. All of these can keep your essentials safe and sound, and no one would ever guess. They sure did trust the quirks of a house to hide their valuables. Folks would use the very bones of the building, things like under floorboards, inside walls, and behind panels. Homes built back in the early 20th century often had baseboards you could take off or ventilation panels that made for perfect hiding places. The beauty of these spots was twofold. They were tough to get to unless you knew exactly where to look, and they just looked like part of the house. These days, that teaches us the value of blending storage right into the structure. Removable floorboards, false backs in cabinets, or even panels behind a radiator can hide supplies or valuables if you're trying to be discreet. Knowing how to spot and use those architectural gaps, well, it can make your storage just about invisible. And then there's furniture with secret compartments. Our grandparents were downright masters at turning regular old furniture into hidden safes. Dressers with false bottoms, armchairs with little pockets under the cushions, or tables with secret drawers. These were all pretty common. The best part was, the furniture still worked just like it was supposed to, but it also kept things safe. You can take a page from their book by modifying your own furniture. Maybe you've got a bookshelf that could hide a few things in the base, or you could add a hidden zippered pocket to your sofa. The main thing is, if something's useful, it can also be a place to stash your essentials, especially in a survival situation where you need to keep things hidden but within reach. They concealed valuables in plain sight in unlikely places. Grandparents understood the psychology of thieves. Burglars look where valuables are supposed to be. Beds, desks, and safes were obvious targets. The unassuming locations often went unnoticed. Ceiling beams, behind curtain rods, or within hollow stair treads were ingenious hiding spots. Even inside potted plants or sewing machines, valuables could remain undetected. In practical terms, this demonstrates the power of misdirection and surprise. In a modern survival context, you could stash emergency cash, small weapons, or critical documents inside objects that blend into the environment, effectively making them invisible to casual intruders. They embedded valuables in everyday household supplies. Hiding treasures in food containers or cleaning supplies was remarkably effective. Empty sugar sacks, flour bins, and even laundry detergent boxes could hide coins, rings, or small trinkets. The advantage was the natural integration into everyday chores. The burglar wouldn't waste time digging through laundry or pantry containers. For a survivalist, this offers a blueprint for concealing emergency rations, cash, or small tools. Keeping resources hidden in plain sight while maintaining normal routines reduces risk and preserves operational security in any home or camp setting. They relied on personal habits and routines to secure items. Beyond physical concealment, grandparents often depended on behavioral camouflage. They would rotate hiding spots, rarely repeat locations, and maintain an air of normalcy around their possessions. This made it difficult for intruders to detect patterns. The lesson here is straightforward, predictable routines are vulnerabilities. Whether you're managing valuables at home or stashing gear in a survival setting, randomizing storage locations, frequently checking security, and avoiding obvious storage patterns dramatically increases protection. You know, it wasn't only inside the house. Grandparents cleverly used outdoor areas to hide small valuables. Hollow fence posts, flower pots, garden sheds, and even tree cavities offered unexpected concealment. These spots were particularly useful in rural areas or places with less foot traffic. In modern application, this really demonstrates the benefit of decentralized storage. By spreading supplies across multiple hidden locations, you reduce the risk of total loss. For survivalists, this can mean caching water, fire-starting materials, or emergency funds in secure, disguised outdoor spots. Some grandparents kept subtle notes or visual cues to remember where items were stashed, often disguised as ordinary household lists or patterns in decoration. The key was secrecy, even in memory aids. Today, this idea translates into digital or analog codes that only you understand. A map marked in a personal shorthand or even an innocuous diary with coded entries can help track storage locations without drawing attention. For serious historians and survivalists, combining physical concealment with mental or coded records creates layered security that is exceptionally difficult for intruders to breach. Finally, grandparents often practiced restraint in what they left accessible. Items that weren't critical or easily replaced weren't openly stored, and valuables were distributed to reduce risk. This principle remains vital. Limiting exposure of critical items and distributing them across secure spots reduces vulnerability. For a modern survivalist, the takeaway is strategic allocation. Instead of keeping everything in one place, spread essential supplies across secure, hidden locations, ensuring redundancy without inviting unwanted attention. Understanding these historical strategies isn't just about nostalgia. It's about learning resourcefulness and survival mindset from people who lived without modern security. Applying these methods today, whether for personal security, emergency preparedness, or historical research, provides practical insight into both human ingenuity and risk management. Every hiding spot was chosen deliberately, with the careful calculation of psychology, accessibility, and discretion in mind. If you found this guide useful and want to explore more hidden historical knowledge and survival strategies, make sure to subscribe to Battlefield of Survival. Share this with fellow history buffs and survival enthusiasts so that these timeless tactics don't get lost, and so we can uncover more of the clever practices our grandparents perfected.